as the days blow by, steady on the move.
Back here on the AuraRadio show, and this week we got Rhema Soul on the show. We just played the title track off the album, Red, featuring Thizzle. The album is entitled Red, and before that you heard Fly Away from the album Fingerprints. Hey, what's going on, Butter P, K-Nuff, and Juan, what's going on?
Doing good, yo. Happy to be here. Yeah.
Glad you guys are in the building tonight. glad that we have you guys in the building. Just want to talk to me about the concept behind this album, Red, what you were looking to do, how it came to fruition.
Word up. K-nuff, yeah. The concept Red, I should say, basically came up as we were just trying to figure out what we were going to name the album. And then after a year of us, going through the motions of creating the album, right in between making like the first 3 or so songs, we came up with the idea of Red, and it just came with this idea of what the color means, and the color communicating urgency and communicating themes of passion and love, communicating both sides of love, the anger portion of it as well as the good parts of it. We just thought that through the whole process of making the album, we were going through a lot of emotions that were dealing with the same emotions that the color red initiates in people. So, we wanted to write an album that was inspirational, that was real, and it ended up coming out, just like that, the very human perspective type of an album, where from any human being's point of being, they can actually relate to the things that we're talking about, the emotions we're talking about, the struggles we're going through, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to write about what we were going through, but at the same time, we always want to, put the bigger picture out there, and initially to just inspire people, through Jesus, and ultimately leading them that way, but using themes and the attributes that he's communicated while he was here on this earth, and what he's still communicating today to people like yourselves and us.
Between, Red, Fingerprints, your other albums, Worn Souls, are there any similarities or differences that we should know about? We should be looking for between all your albums.
For my first album, the Worn Souls in 2007, we tried to step it up. Obviously, as every artist wants to do with these projects, you want to step it up musically and lyrically and concept-wise, and in really just every aspect. So this one is definitely a big step of growth. We took a lot of risks artistically, and that's just the place that we were in while creating it. We didn't want to do the same thing. We didn't want to make the same album. We wanted to do something really different that challenged us, and even in a sense made us feel intimidated and challenged musically, because I think that sometimes that's the way the best art happens, is when you really just step outside of yourself and challenge yourself to do something you've never done before and talk about things you've never done before. So we visit, concepts and ideas and themes that we've never talked about. So I would say it's similar just in the fact that we challenged ourselves through the process, like we've always done, but it's different in the way that it sounds. And I don't think any of our projects really sound like the next. They might have elements of the previous one, but this is definitely a departure from anything that we've done thus far.
Cool. Speaking of that, talk about this growth as an artist, growth as a Christian, growth as a person. The thing I noticed in your last answer, guys, you guys say growth is something that was big, and you've grown between all the albums. But just talk about that growth process, because, as we have a faith walk, it is a growth process, and we're growing every day. But just talk about how you guys have grown through making albums spiritually, how you've grown as well as artists.
Well, I think any artist grows. Just people grow in period in life. You definitely have to grow on a personal level, on a spiritual level, just based on your situations in life. Go through life, and you get married, you have children, you become older, you graduate from high school, graduate from college, type of thing. So it's the same thing with artists. Every album grows, and every album we try to we like to be very transparent in our music. And not really shy away from where we're at in our lives at the time. And that was no different with this album. With this album, God really had us in a different type of season. As we've mentioned before, we've been very open and honest about the step of faith that God had asked us to take going into this process. And, He called us out of our full-time jobs, and, we were making, good money. We were in the height of our careers, and God asked us to make a bold move and to step out of that in faith and just trust on the calling and the purpose that He had placed on our life. So that's ultimately what this album is really just talking about. It's just us just kind of sharing our hearts just about what it is to trust in God and really to trust in ourselves and believe in ourselves and believe in God and know that the dreams that we have aren't far-fetched, that they're attainable because of the fact that God is the one that birthed them in us. And it's really just, that's where we're at right now, is it's really just knowing that our life is 100% dependent on who God is right now. And we're learning to function in that call, and we're learning to function in the purpose that God has given us with Rhema Soul, being husbands, being wives, being parents. So we're learning how to balance all this and kind of die to ourselves, really, the way Scripture says, to die to ourselves and die to flesh, because it's easy for us to get to a point and complain and feel like financially we're not seeing things the way we want them to, or things aren't coming as fast as we want them to. But God has really just has us in a season to just really for us to put all that aside and just trust in Him, and just hold on to the promise that He's given us. And with all that said, we've had ups and downs and all around with the season we've been in, and in the process of recording the album. We had a lot of joys, we've had a lot of failures, we've had a lot of heartbreaks. There were so many things going on, and it was tough. And no one knows that. There's only a few select people that know the trials and tribulations we've gone through. But at the same time, with all that, we were able to see God's hand upon our lives through it all, and it definitely has allowed us to see each other's growth within each other, and just see where we're at, and it's just allowing us to know that we've had to go through this process in order for us to become better at what we're doing. And I've been calling this process a pruning process.
Wow. In
order for God to really use us in the way that He wants to use us, there's things that He needs to prune from our lives. And
so true.
My struggles may not be the same as Juan Love's, and Juan Love's struggles are not going to be the same as k-nuff. But the three of us together are going to make a powerful unit. And the more you weed out the things that aren't going to, you weed out the things that are going to hinder growth, the more powerful we're going to function as a unit. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and personally, and we're just praying that feeling transcends through the music. So this ultimately we want people to have a sense of urgency in what it means to follow God, what it means to follow your dreams, and just pursue it with a passion and knowing that God has called you for it and prepared you for it.
Well, wow, Butter, you answered one question for me about the team thing and the teamwork and how all you guys work together. But just to piggyback that question, I want to ask you guys this: what would this kind of for people who might be in the same situation as far as trying to going from the professional world, going from part-time ministry to full-time ministry? Just maybe some suggestions, some advice you would give them.
Yeah, I would say I heard this saying today, and it made me think about what we did. And it said, it goes like this. It goes, anything cheap isn't usually good, and anything good isn't usually cheap. And I thought about what that meant, and it really is just about the price, that you're willing to pay to do something like this. And it's a heavy price, There's a lot of sacrifice involved. There's a lot of obedience, a lot of dying to self. Because at the end of the day, you are totally surrendering your life to God. Everything, every part of it. The financial part, you're relying on Him for every dollar. You're relying on Him for all the food that is provided to your household. Of course, if you're younger, then the decision is a little bit easier because, you know, or should I say not younger, but you have less responsibility, then the decision can be a little bit easier, but there's still going to be a price to pay, you know? And if somebody's thinking of doing this decision or making a decision like this, I should say a lot of thought, you know, prayer, fasting needs to go into a decision like this because it's going to be life-changing, it's going to have challenges, and all of those things need spousal support. You need support of your whole family if you're doing something like this. You need support of your family. You need support of your friends. You know, you're going to need support from all roads of life because especially the people that are very close to you. So when I say family, I'm talking about your extended family, your friends that you consider family. You're going to need that support because it isn't easy. It's a price that needs to be paid. And of course, you know, everything gets better because you're paying for something that is ultimately, you know, great. You're in the presence of God. You're in His will, and that is the most important thing, being in the will of God. Because not everyone's called to do this. I know it. I know it. I know that it. Because I've been to quit. Just being, you know, completely honest with you. I've been challenged to quit. I'm sure Warren has, and I know that Buddy has. Tells me that sometimes.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you have to weigh the price, you know, just like with anything, but especially when you're about to make a bold step like that. Because people are watching, people are equating what you're doing to God being successful or God being able to bring about success, you know, and it's a heavy burden, you know. But at the same time, it's liberating because you're in the presence of God and you know that God is with you. You know that God, you get to see Him actually flex His muscles when you step out in faith and He's the only one that can catch you, you know?
Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. We're about to get into another track off the album, Red. This song is called Beautiful, features John. Talk a little bit about this song, guys.
Yeah, well, the song Beautiful, it's my daughter's actually starting to sing it. Well, it sounds so beautiful. It's a solo song I did. It was really just, I really have a burden for young girls and young women and really just wanting to just reach out to them and just kind of, you know, give them something else to look up to and give them another outlet or avenue, for lack of a better word. And it was just something, it's just a song that I just really wanted to come out with and just talk about waiting on love and just, you know, as females, we have a tendency to fall in love easily. And we allow our heart, we give our heart to the first person that we meet. And it's just easy for us to get our hearts broken. And because we get our hearts broken, we allow that to define who we're going to be as a woman, unfortunately. And we allow it to define us in every aspect of our life. And we try to say that it doesn't, but we do, because the minute you lose that first, you know, genuine piece of love that you give to someone and you experience heartbreak, it just totally begins to taint what love is to you. So I really wanted to just talk to the young women and just to encourage them and say, listen, you know, wait on love. Don't be in such a hurry to fall in love. Don't give your heart to so many people, because what will happen is one day you'll meet the person that you're supposed to marry and you won't have anything left to give to that person. And if you have, you know, for whatever reason you've given your heart away, or if you've given your purity away, or you've gone through things in your life and your past that may have affected who you've become as a woman. You know, I dealt with sexual abuse. I was sexually molested as a little girl, so it was something that, you know, began to hinder me growing up, and almost to the point that I almost allowed it to break my spirit. And so the song is really just, it's really just a girl's anthem. Just listen, you know, at the end of the day, we're beautiful, and God made us in His image, and He wants us to be perfect. And who better than, I say in the song, you know, who better than to teach us how to love than the Creator? And it's true, like, you know, no one's going to be able to teach you how to love us besides God, because He's the one who created us, and He's the one who created love. And if we wait solely on God and just allow Him to define what love is to us, it'll make that transition easier within relationships.
We're going to get into it right now. More from Rhema Soul when we get back. Back here on the AuraRadio show, we got Rhema Soul in the building. Thank you guys for being on the show. You guys just want to talk about, you guys have a background, worship leader in your churches, in working with youth, and you're part of an organization called One Hope. I want you guys to talk a little bit about that.
As far as that's actually an organization that k-nuff and I traveled with some years ago, so we're not involved with them anymore.
Okay.
It's a missionary organization that we partnered with in the early 2000s for a couple of years, actually, that travel all over the world, teaching in schools, and doing like assemblies and concerts and those kinds of things, and basically just encouraging young people just live for God and to make wise choices and to live a lifestyle that's just worthy of being called a Christian. But that's something that we did some time ago. We definitely have a passion. But the organization that we actually work with now is called Hope in Motion.
Okay.
And what they do, we partnered with a friend of ours named Pedro Latorre, who's actually KJ52's drummer. He has a nonprofit called Hope in Motion, where basically he goes into schools, be they private schools as well as public schools. And what we do is we do school assemblies, and again, we talk about making wise choices and stuff. And we talk about teen suicide. We talk about different types of substance abuse, bullying, and all these different kinds of things. And we go into public schools as well, where we're really not allowed to say Jesus or God or anything like that. But you'd be amazed at the response we get after a school assembly, because you can be sharing something very powerful, and the Spirit of God is on it. And sometimes you don't even have to say God or Jesus, and it almost like resonates with people's spirit. So at the end of assemblies, you'd be really amazed at the stories that we hear, people discussing their lives and basically just telling us things that they're struggling with, sometimes even in tears. Young girls going up to butter and just relating to her story and pouring out their hearts and really just in a sense crying out. So we're able to share, in schools in that aspect. So that's something that we're involved in now as well.
Well, let's talk about the first single you released, "No Walking Away." It's a song about commitment. Just tell us how this song came about and just talk about it.
Word, definitely. The song "No Walking Away" basically just came about. It was actually the first song that we recorded for the album out of all the songs. It was the very first one. So, we were very excited when we got it, when we laid it down. But the actual thought behind it was this. When you have, and again, a lot of this relates to our walk, but it just relates to normal people. If you have a goal or a decision that is replaced in your heart, God gives us dreams, and we're firm believers that the dreams of young people, even the dreams of older people, are given to them to line up with the purposes God has for them. So those dreams that, kids have of being, lawyers and doctors and basketball players and pastors and all these different things, that we believe that's plan A for their lives. And God wants to use that to put them in a place to do His work, whatever that may be. So when we're faced with these types of opportunities, a lot of things are going to come in to negate that promise, Every decision that someone makes either supports the promises of their lives or works in objection to it, to destroy it. So we're trying to communicate in that song that no matter what, if God has given you something, if you have a dream, if you're a college kid and you're out there, trying to pursue some sort of a goal, don't walk away. There's no walking away. There's no reason to settle for plan B or C or D. Go for it. It's going to take work, but no walking away. That's it. Sink or swim, we're going to do it.
Cool. Well, we're going to get into this track, and we'll have more from Rhema Soul when we get back. With Rhema Soul, been great talking with you guys. Want to talk about what are you guys reading right now? What scriptures are you studying or books you're reading that the listeners might be encouraged by, or something? We already talked about some experiences that you've been through that you've seen the Lord work. But any particular scripture you're reading or book that you're reading that you might want to pass on, let us know that's good?
Oh, well, yes, actually, I have actually been studying the book of Exodus lately, reading about Moses, and just the whole transition of how he was able to take the people out of Egypt, and he's been leading them to the promised land. And just a few weeks ago, I was just reading about, that they had gotten to a point where they were getting tired and frustrated with being in the wilderness. And I was challenged by it because they, God had been providing for them. He had provided manna for them, and he was sustaining them. He didn't allow their clothes to get old. He took care of all the small details that we just don't pay attention to, that we just kind of take for granted. And, at one point they just got tired and they just began to complain to the point where they began to feel like Egypt wasn't so bad after all. And they began to look back at Egypt and say, man, we should have never left Egypt. And I was challenged the other day because while I was reading that, I was kind of feeling, very similar to that. I was beginning to feel like, man, God, how long are you going to have to go through this process? I'm not seeing all the fruits of our labor as fast as I want to. And I realized I started becoming one of those people complaining and not really, instead of giving God all the glory for sustaining me for the past few months, I was beginning to get to the point where I was getting tired and I was just complaining. And it totally challenged me to the point that I kind of just, had to check myself and say, man, like, look back at this past year and look at how not one bill has been missed. Our daughter is being taken care of. The household is being taken care of. Financially, I don't know how, but we have money in our bank account. So it may not be the money that we used to have. It's not the money that we would like to see. But at the end of the day, like, everything is being taken care of. And to the point, in a matter of like a week's time, so many things began to change for us. And so it's just been a good. That's just kind of what I've been focusing on, just on that story, and with Moses speaking to the people, just letting them know that you're about to enter into the promised land, and God is promised. This is what He's promised you, that you are going to be successful and you're going to have all these things. But just to remain faithful to God and make sure that once you get to that point, that you have to make sure that you don't take any of that glory. And it's just really been challenging me in that aspect, because I just feel like it's totally aligning with where I'm at right now, and God just continues to reaffirm where I'm at, and for me to remind myself constantly that at the end of the day, no matter how much success I see, I need to make sure that I give God all the glory for it, whether it's
Amen.
marriage, my successful daughter, that she grows up and to be a woman of God, that I pray for her to be. All that success, I need to make sure that I give God glory for that. It's nothing that I'm doing. I'm just being so vessel. So that's what's been challenging me lately. I'll pass it over on that.
Cool. K-nuff, what about you guys?
One book that I actually just finished reading, to talking about biblical reading, I'll pick it up. A book that I just finished teaching in my young adult group that I lead at my church is a book called Crazy Love.
Oh, yeah.
By
Francis.
Chance.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, it's an excellent book, and it's called Crazy Love. It's very, very well put title, and it basically just talks about how the love of God is crazy, and it's just ridiculous in our minds, to understand the fact that God knows everything about us, even our thoughts. He knows the ways that our minds work. He knows, the different things that we commit on a daily basis. And yet His love is still so big, and it's so forgiving, and it overlooks all of our faults and our shortcomings, to the point that He still blesses us and He still loves us with His undying, unending love. So that's what I was definitely and still challenged by just in teaching that I felt college age student, I was speaking to myself, like God was just revealing things even through the words that I was speaking, where I was ministering to myself, really, in the words that I was. So that was definitely a book challenge. It's one of the books of the year.
Cool.
Sharp myself on it, just keep fresh, aside from my physical reading as well.
Cool. Well, let's talk about this next track we're about to get into, Break Out. Tell me a little bit about that track and the message, you know?
Yeah, the song Break Out, actually, we're really excited about that song. We just shot a video for it.
Oh, sweet.
This past week. Yeah, so look out for that. It's going to be really, really dope. But the concept of that song is really just, it's kind of self-explanatory a little bit in the title. It's just breaking out and just breaking free from the things that try to hinder you. One thing that we just found ourselves talking a lot about on this album was just hanging on to those dreams that God has given you, hanging on to that promise, and knowing that you're not forgotten, and knowing that in walking away, you'd really just be throwing away the promises of God, because He's waiting to awaken those dreams inside of us, and sometimes we tend to really just put those on the back burner because of responsibilities and fear, and all those things are normal emotions, but understanding that in life, sometimes you really just have to break out of that, as we say, comfort zone. I know that's a very churchy term, but it's very true. We have to break out of that box that we keep ourselves in. And I know that fear is something that holds a lot of people back on a daily basis, really just from achieving their dreams and from going after the things that God's put on their hearts and their desires. So that's kind of the short end of what that song is about, just breaking free of those things and not allowing yourself to fall victim to fear or pressure.
Back here on the AuraRadio show with Rhema Soul. It's been a pleasure having you guys on. Go ahead and tell us when the album is coming out again, and how we can get a hold of it. Sure, it's going to be available on iTunes, right? Amazon. Talk about it.
All right, yeah. Well, definitely. The album comes out March 27th. It will be available. Actually, physical copies in stores. It will actually be available March 26th on that Monday.
Sweet.
Fully release. So if you're still into physical copies, the store cop that joint, and then on Tuesday go on iTunes and get it. It'll be available on iTunes, Amazon. Again, if you guys ever want to hit us up, RhemaSoul.com. Hit us up on Twitter at Rhema Soul, Facebook Rhema Soul, Life Rhema Soul. But yeah, man, we're excited about the album. So we're hoping that it's successful in the sense of that it touches lives and makes an impact, and people are just inspired to make a change in life and really just go after their dreams. Funny, I got a text yesterday from someone who was able to review the album, and he says, man, this album's got me ready to start a revolution. And I wrote him back. I said, good, you got the message.
Cool. And
that's really what we want, man. We really want people just to have the passion, pursue God with urgency, and really just know that you have the power to make a change in this world, and ultimately for the kingdom.
Absolutely. And before we get out of here, we do this every show. As we're talking, guys, you guys go ahead and share the gospel with our audience, because that's the most important thing. I know some of our listeners, they hear it every week, and we're going to continue to give it every week. But Rhema, so I want you guys to go ahead and present the gospel, because there might be somebody who's listening for the first time who doesn't know the Lord, and they need to know what it's all about. So go ahead.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Again, thank you for having us. But yes, just to put it in very plain terms, I mean, the gospel is really just a love story. It's a very simple narrative, and it involves the God who created the foundations of this earth, and it involves a fallen people, which is you and I, people that are not perfect, people that make mistakes, people that go through troubles and have different kinds of fears and worries and anxieties. But ultimately, the story of the gospel is the story of a God who came down to this earth because He saw that we needed Him, and He saw that we were struggling and that we were lost, and we really just did not have any direction. So He chose to make that decision. Even though He was God, He chose to come down to this earth 2,000 years ago in the form of a man, so that He can relate to us, so that He can feel the same types of struggles and the same types of pains, and even hunger and thirst in the way that we feel. And He chose to walk among us, and His name was Jesus. And He was born to a virgin, a teenage girl. And it's funny that God chose a teenage girl, such a vulnerable and just a girl that loved God but was young and hadn't really been through any type of experiences. But it just shows that God doesn't do things the way that we would expect him to do things. So he walked among us, and ultimately he was hated because he came, to lead us, and he came saying a lot of radical things and things that made the religious people of the day very angry because of the claims that he made and saying that he was the Son of God, and he spoke about heaven, and he spoke about the kingdom of God and the life that was to come. And because people hated him so much and did not like the things that he said, they chose to in a sense, really just murder him. They chose to take him and drag him in front of an entire city with a lot of people, a lot of onlookers, and they chose to nail him to a cross and kill him. And the reason he did that is because he knew that without the shedding of blood, there's no forgiveness of sins. And it says that actually in the Old Testament from many, many, many years ago, and even in the Jewish tradition, that an animal had to be slaughtered in order for there to be forgiveness. And he chose to be the one that sacrificed, that gave himself so that he can build that bridge between us and between God, so that we could come to know him. So he died for us, and 3 days later he rose again in all his power and love and his glory to show that he truly was who he says he was. And he did that all because he loves us. It's not a complicated story. People want to complicate it and add all their own theories and stuff. At the end of the day, what it is, it's a love story. And if you're out there and you have any questions about God, I just challenge you, quiet, ask him to be real in your life if you've never felt him before. And believe that in that quiet room and in a state of just honesty and transparency, that he will touch your heart and he will touch your mind, and he'll begin to move in your life as long as you make yourself available to him.
Cool. Thank you, Rhema. So appreciate you being on the show. Guys, been in John 3 today. Go back over the lesson, study it, sit on your quiet time, think about what they just said. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Stay in your Bibles, keep praying, and remember, actions speak louder than words. God bless. We're going to close it out with one of my favorite Rhema Soul songs, Champion.